The Islanders' next move has been revealed, as there is one major weakness with this Islanders team that is not getting enough attention this offseason. And we're going to break it down on this episode of Islanders Digest, and you might be surprised in what this weakness is because it comes in a position of strength for the New York Islanders. When you're thinking weaknesses for the Islanders, you're probably thinking scoring or depth on defense. But this weakness is goaltending. We're going to break it down on this episode of Islanders Digest. But before we get into that, we notice that 65% of you who watch these videos have not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you're an Islander fan, you want more Islanders content just like this, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button. It's free. Now, we got to talk about the goaltending with the New York Islanders, and this is an area where Mathew Barzal is definitely going to have to do something. Now, you're probably wondering, why would you do anything with the goaltending? Ilya Sorokin, while he had a down year, was still one of the better goaltenders in the NHL. And Ilya Sorokin is not a problem for the Islanders. But after that, the Islanders have a very serious goaltending problem, and it's going to affect Ilya Sorokin down the road if they don't find a solution. And that is, the Islanders are really uncertain when it comes to the backup goaltending position. Last season, Varlamov suffered with a lot of injuries, and while he did say in Locker Cleanup Day that he intends to return next season, we really don't know what quality of goaltending the Islanders are getting from Varlamov. I mean, he did say, I expect to be ready next season. Everything is going well with rehab and psychotherapy. The main focus for me is finish rehab, hopefully soon, and have a good summer of training, and then be ready for summer training camp. And we talked about it on the day. This was very reassuring, especially when it comes to the rough season that Varlamov had. But when it comes to Varlamov in the future with the Islanders, you really have to wonder, is a bounce back season really in the cards? As much as I love Varlamov, and I think he is one of the better goaltenders throughout history in the NHL, especially recently, he's 37 years old. And if that's not scary enough, he's coming off a major knee surgery after suffering with issues with his groin for several seasons in a row. This is a goaltender where you really have to question what 100% is for Varlamov. Now he says, I want to make sure I'm ready 100% for next season. I really question what that's going to be, and that's a major concern for the Islanders because they cannot have another season where Ilya Sorokin is playing 61 plus games. Yes, Ilya Sorokin is a starting goaltender. If he needs to play more games, he can. But beyond 60 games, I don't think he can really push it any further. And if you look at the way he plays, he seems to take a step back when the Islanders force him to play too much. And that's really what he's had to do with Varlamov, especially last season, only playing 10 games. And this, we can talk about a bunch of different issues on why the Islanders did not make the playoffs. One issue that is not being addressed at all is the goaltending. If you look at the Islanders in the past seasons, they were able to win games with both goaltenders. I mean, 2 years ago, Varlamov won 8 games for the Islanders, and frankly, honestly, that is not... Sorry, he won 14 games for the Islanders. That was incorrect. He won 14 games for the Islanders, and keep in mind, a lot of those games were down the stretch. He got hot when they needed him most. This is something the Islanders need. Last season, from backup goaltenders, the Islanders got a grand total of 5 wins. 5 from their backup goalies. So in the 20 games where Ilya Sorokin did not play for the Islanders, they only won 5 of those games. If they win 10, if they just win half those games, we have a different conversation when it comes to what happened last year for the Islanders. Yes, they probably still don't make the playoffs, but they're within a few points if they get 10 points in those games that they did not get because the backup goaltending was horrendous for the Islanders. And while he was dealing with injuries, and because of that, you can give him a bit of a pass, Varlamov was a big part of that problem for the Islanders. If you look, last season he had an .889 save percentage, only played 10 games, so I guess he didn't fully get himself going, or perhaps he realized he was too injured to get himself going. But again, as much as I want to think that Varlamov is going to bounce back, and I do think there's a chance he bounces back, you have to be hesitant if you're an Islander fan because this season he's going to be turning 38. He's 37 by the end of the year. He's going to be 38 years old. You don't really expect players who are getting older to have a bounce back season, especially at age 37. So this is something the Islanders are going to have to plan for. Mathew Barzal is going to have to get another plan when it comes to goaltending. And as brought up in this article by the Hockey News, perhaps a perfect choice for the Islanders is Ilya Samsonov. Kind of fits in with the fact that all the Islanders goaltenders are Russian. And this is not going to be a signing that is exciting if it does happen for the Islanders. You can likely expect he sign for under $1 million, just trying to make it in the NHL in a role that he can play. And considering what he did for Vegas last year, he likely would be interested in a role with the Islanders, because most teams probably are not going to have a lot of interest in him as a starter or even a backup next season, even considering the goaltending market is terrible, which is actually one of the reasons why I'm looking into Samsonov as a potential fit for the Islanders to kind of be a backup situation if Varlamov doesn't work, because the Islanders, you can't spend a lot of money on another backup goaltender because you still have Varlamov, and that's just going to make a lot of cap issues, but you need something, because what we saw last year was Hogberg was not the solution. As we're going to talk about in just a little bit, you can't go into this season with no backup plan if Varlamov gets hurt, or if Sorokin, God forbid, gets injured, because then the Islanders have a real problem, because if Varlamov is already injured and struggling to play 20 to 30 games as it is, if he's going to have to be the starter, you're definitely going to need a backup who can take a bigger role. And Samsonov can be a fit for the Islanders. Again, it would make a lot of sense for him to come to the Islanders just because of Varlamov in the situation. He would see that as an opportunity to potentially get in some NHL games. And in addition to that, this is a goaltender who really is not going to have a lot of choices. I mean, a 971 save percentage, an 871 save percentage would be absolutely incredible. I don't know what I'm talking about. 871, he had a rough year for Vegas, and it's notable that that rough year was for Vegas, considering how good of a defensive team they are. But if you look throughout his career, Samsonov has actually had he's had one really good season in the NHL, 2 passable seasons, and it makes you wonder if this is a player who can bounce back. He is 28 years old, so he is not a young goaltender, though significantly younger than Varlamov, which gives you more hope that he can potentially come back to the way that he played in the 2021-22 season for the Washington Capitals. Now, Maple Leafs fans and Vegas Golden Knights fans will tell you that he is a rough goaltender, and he really does not have much left. But when it comes to options for the Islanders to play meaningful games in a scenario where Varlamov does not bounce back, because again, while I really want Varlamov to bounce back, it really is not a conclusion that he will. You can't trust a goaltender like Hogberg. Hogberg last season for the Islanders was absolutely abysmal. And you look at his season beyond, he was also pretty bad for the Bridgeport Islanders. And when we talk about how the Bridgeport Islanders were not a successful team this season, one of the big reasons why, and granted, he was away in the NHL most of the season, so as a result, they didn't really have him as their starter. But he also was not great in Bridgeport, having an 898 in the minor leagues, and then coming up for the Islanders, he had an 878. And keep in mind, for his first 5 games before he got hurt initially, he actually had like a 900 save percentage. So in those last 10 games for the Islanders, Hogberg was almost impossible to play. I mean, we saw the one game where he gave up those 8 goals against the Rangers, and then Patrick Waugh decided to put in Tristan Lennox, only to see how awful he looked on that one goal. The Islanders are in a weird place when it comes to goaltending, just because they have 2 really quality goaltending prospects in Gudoff and Gamzin, but neither one of them are coming to America this year. At least as far as we know, they're not. If the Islanders somehow bring in a deal to bringing Gudoff a year early and have him play for the AHL, then that'd be really exciting. In that case, they don't need to take a risk on a player like Samsonov. But with an uncertainty there, I think it makes sense for the Islanders to bring a goaltender in Samsonov in on a 1-year deal, even if you have to overpay him a bit, give him $1.5 million, and then if Varlamov is healthy, you can send him down to the AHL, where he'll still be making decent money, and he's there if you need him, because you can't do what they did again next season. It's one of the big reasons why they missed the playoffs. Now, it's not the only reason, but you can't have, and Ilya Sorokin was great, but you can't have him playing 61 games and expect him to win all those games, because realistically, with your backup goaltenders only winning you 5 games in a season, for the Islanders to make the playoffs, Ilya Sorokin had to win, he would have to win 37 games. I understand you want Ilya Sorokin to win more games, but it's just not really practical, especially with the type of hockey the Islanders play. And while a big part of that is due to offense and defense, which they also need to address, I think this problem with the backup goaltending is definitely underrated, and perhaps something that Mathew Barzal should focus on in the offseason, because while it's going to be difficult to improve the Islanders' scoring in one season, I think he can do it, and I think he has a plan to do it. but I think a big part of that involves drafting. An issue in terms of backup goaltending and third string goaltending can be fixed really easily with signing a player like Samsonov. Let me know what you think of the Islanders bringing him in the comments below. It's not going to be a big deal if it doesn't work out, just because the Islanders still have Sorokin and they can figure it out with their prospects. But I really think this is a player that can add more security to the Islanders in the sense where even if Samsonov is not going to be providing great goaltending in those games, you know you can win an NHL game with Samsonov. Well, I don't really know if you can win a game with Hogberg. He really showed, especially towards the end of last season, that especially with his poor positioning, he will find ways to lose games rather than win them more often than not. Love to know your thoughts on this in the comments below, or if you know any other goaltenders you'd like to bring the Islanders to bring in as a third string. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go Islanders.